A lot of people are angry today, and they have every right to be angry. Last night, Senate Democrats filibustered. They blocked the Chinese coronavirus relief bill from passing in the Senate. They refused to vote to allow debate or end debate. So they essentially filibustered the bill. Now, this vote in the Senate was designed to allow the Senate to start debating legislation that would provide relief to Americans and American businesses that were being hurt by the Chinese coronavirus and the economic fallout. So a bit of background, right? Earlier in the day, Nancy Pelosi declared that she was not going to support the GOP, the Senate GOP's bill, and that instead, House Democrats were going to move forward with their own stimulus plan. Now, this is pretty fresh coming from someone who gavelled the House into recess and is only now bringing congressmen back to D.C. I'll say that again. Nancy Pelosi gavelled the House into recess. The Senate stayed over the weekend to work out a compromise bill. And because she didn't like what she saw, she's now sabotaging the process, forcing Senate Democrats to kill the bill and saying that she wants to start over with her own party's bill. Senate Democrats followed her lead and killed last night the very compromise bill that they had spent days negotiating. But when the shoe was on the other foot, when it was House Republicans complaining about the bill that Nancy Pelosi was pushing, that original $8 billion relief bill, Pelosi said that Republicans should just bite their tongue and vote for it anyway, and that Congress afterwards would have an after-action review and would be able to pass additional legislation to fill in any gaps. Now, this harkens back to Nancy Pelosi's infamous Affordable Care Act comment, where she said the Congress needed to pass the bill in order to find out what was in it. Here is what Nancy Pelosi was saying just a week and a half ago.
To governors, mayors, nonprofit organizations, educators, and the rest. This is what families need. They made suggestions to the language. We're making, agreeing to most of it because they're not that different. So we don't need 48 hours. We need to just make a decision to help families right now, because we have to operate not as business as usual, but in an emergency status where we have to get the job done.
But if the decision isn't made,
yes, Nancy. I'm not sticking around because they don't want to agree to language. We're agreeing to much of what they have to look. First of all, Mitch McConnell called me and said, "You work with the secretary. That's it." Now the House Republicans are saying they're not in the loop. No, we sent them the language. It's not about that, and it's about putting people and families first. So I mean, everybody could have a complaint about this or that. I said, save it for another day. We can have an after-action review about how we got into this situation. Save it for another day. Right now, we have to find our common ground, work together to get this done as soon as possible, because we have other needs. We will have to address this issue further. And it's some things that they might want in this bill that aren't there. There could be another bill shortly down the road. We didn't do everything last week with $8.3 billion, but we did a great deal, and now we're doing more, and then we're fully prepared to do more. So we're responding to their concerns. We don't want them moving the goalpost, and that's it.
So yeah, there you have it. That's Nancy Pelosi last week when the shoe was on the other foot, saying that Republicans need to just vote for the bill and we can fix it later. There'll be other bills. But now that she's being called on to do the same thing, she can't bring herself to do it. She has to make this her bill. It has to be her way or the highway. And it's important to say it again, that Nancy Pelosi gavelled the House into recess while the Senate was negotiating this bill. House Democrats, and I guess House Republicans too, were not in D.C. They were not working with Senate Republicans and Senate Democrats. So for her to now scuttle this bill, it really feels like she's just trying to take her ball and go home. What's amazing, though, is that the mainstream media is already trying to circle the wagons. Let's take a look at how the New York Times was covering this vote yesterday. So the first headline, Democrats block $1.8 trillion stimulus bill. Let's see how it changed. What did it change to after that? Oh, the Democrats block action on stimulus plan, but only because they're seeking worker protections, right? So they blocked it, but they had a good excuse. And what did it evolve into? Partisan divide threatens deal on rescue bill. So instead of the Democrats blocking it, now it's the partisan divide that is stopping this. Basically, they've taken it from Democrats blocking the bill to now they're being Republican blame as well. They think you're stupid. They think you aren't paying attention, and they can just throw whatever headline they want at you and it'll stick. They're actually trying to push the narrative that Democrats blocked the stimulus bill because they care about you. No, they only care about hurting Trump. We saw this with USMCA. Nancy Pelosi sat on the trade deal as long as she could, and she was forced to actually bring it up when people started calling her out and saying that she was only focused on impeachment and not helping the country. But then when she brought it up, she demanded that it be her bill. She could not fathom the idea of giving Trump a victory lap on this. So she made sure that the Democrats got to rewrite USMCA instead of the Trump administration. Now, was the Senate stimulus bill perfect? Absolutely not. It included provisions to give the Treasury the ability to pick and decide which industries would get bailout funds and which would not, essentially giving the government the ability to pick winners and losers. Democrats, though, responded by spewing lies, saying that because the administration had talked about bailing out the hotel industry, that Donald Trump was specifically trying to get a bailout for his own properties. It was a horrible, horrible smear. And make no mistake, Nancy Pelosi's plan will also pick winners and losers. We already know what the Democrats are trying to change in the bill. They want more assistance going to illegal immigrants. They want more assistance going to low-income Americans. They want to stop big businesses and even small to medium businesses from being bailed out, from getting that cash infusion. But most importantly, they want to decide what the cap is, what the income cap is, to decide which Americans will get stimulus funds and which will not. And this is how absurd this is. The only tax year that the IRS has for the American people is the 2018 tax year. That's because 2019 hasn't been filed yet. So what they're talking about is picking the winners and losers based on how much money people made back in 2018. It doesn't matter whether their job situation has changed since then, especially in the last couple of weeks. It doesn't matter if they've bought a house. It doesn't matter if they've added to their family and added a child to the mix. Democrats don't care. They're using the 2018 tax year to decide the winners and the losers. Now, let's be completely honest about this. We are only in this position because Democrats squandered the months of January and February on their impeachment nonsense. The House committees that were charged with investigating President Trump were Financial Services, Judiciary, Intelligence, Ways and Means, and Government Oversight. So instead of Maxine Waters holding hearings in the Financial Services Committee, trying to figure out how to protect the financial industry if coronavirus was to reach our shores, instead, she was being tasked with trying to dig into President Trump to take him out. Instead of receiving intelligence briefings and holding hearings on whether China was trying to cover up the Chinese coronavirus and prevent people from actually knowing what was happening, Adam Schiff and his committee were holding secret depositions in the basement of the Capitol, trying to remove the President of the United States from office. Instead of figuring out what to do with federal inmates in case the Chinese coronavirus were to infect people in the prison system, Jerry Nadler and the Judiciary Committee were holding hearings debating, and this is not a joke, they were debating whether the House is allowed to impeach a president who has not committed a crime. Actions have consequences. Democrats spent January and February trying to remove the President of the United States from office. Thank God Donald Trump can walk and chew gum at the same time. While he was defending himself during this impeachment nonsense, Donald Trump shut down travel to China, which Democrats claimed back then was racist. They claimed that he was just trying to change the narrative to obscure all the impeachment stuff. But we now know that that saved American lives, that bought us time. But now these same partisan Democrats want to do it all over again. Instead of working together for what's best for the American people, they want to put politics ahead of country. Now, it is vitally important that you put a stop to this, whether you take part in one of our Facts Blast campaigns or contact your congressmen or senators directly. It is important that you let them know in no uncertain terms that if they do not put country ahead of party, they will be dragged out of office. If they do not stop playing partisan games and playing games with Americans' lives and livelihoods, they will be removed from office. At the end of the day, these people are still politicians. They still care about their own re-election prospects. So it is up to you to put the fear of put the fear of the American electorate back into these cowards and force them to stop this and work on behalf of the American people. And if they can't bring themselves to do that, then they are unfit to serve in any capacity. Now, if you like this content, if you like this messaging, please, please, please subscribe to the channel below, hit the bell button for notifications, leave a comment, and there's a link in the description to sign up for our daily newsletter where we talk about things like this and we have daily calls to action. These are issues that the mainstream media isn't necessarily focusing on and that are vitally important for conservatism and for the republic as a whole. So please like, comment, subscribe, and subscribe to our newsletter in the link in the description. Thanks.